Good evening, everybody. If I could have your attention for a few. My name is Roger Burdett, District 2 Commissioner. Been in Effingham 20 years now. Love this county. I work here. My kids go to school here. My kids are in this little school here at one time, which is kind of cool to be back in this lunchroom. I don't know if you've had that over your kids here or not, but this is where they hold a lot of the events. I work here, I drive here every day. You know, that's one of the great things about being a district commissioner is we experience what you experience, we see it every day. Speaking of experience, my voice might not be great because I'm experiencing the pollen, and I'm sure everybody notices around that we got quite a bit of it. But I wanted to do this because of communication really more than anything. I wanted to make sure we were putting out the communication that we should be doing. And I don't think we've done enough of it. We've done a poor job in the past, and I wanted to step up and do something about that. So I'm committed to do these at least annually. I don't know how much would change each year to year, but I think getting information out and doing it over and over is the right thing. And finding different means and media and different ways to do that is also important. And, we've done some great things and some great strides to do that. Mark Lastinger is now with us, and he's going to be getting the information out in different ways about video, and he still doesn't work directly for the newspaper, works with the newspaper and gets stuff in the paper and on Facebook, and you know, we're looking at every type of media outlet that we can to get this kind of information out. Because frankly, people just don't know, and if you don't know, you just assume, and sometimes you assume the wrong things, sometimes the right things, and I get it. We just need to do more of it, and I'm committed to doing that. You know, for commission meetings, we usually have a quick invocation, so if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind doing that now. You bow your heads for just a second. Heavenly Father, I just pray over each and every person here today that you be with them, be with their health, be with their families, Lord. Just pray for a prosperous environment here in Effingham County, a county that I love. Lord, I pray you be with each and every one of us tonight. If anybody's sick or hurt, Lord, I pray you be with them. And Lord, I pray what we say is not just tickling ears, but what we say is truth and what people want to hear, what we need to hear. Lord, we love you, we praise you in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. We'll start out with Tim Callanan. He's our county manager. Just an outstanding individual. I don't know how he keeps up with everything. And then we'll give it over to somebody else. I don't know how he keeps up with everything. It's Jamie DeLoach. He's in District 3, right? And Jamie's like me. We work full-time, and we do this part-time. And we work full-time plus, and this is sometimes almost a full-time job in addition. So it's a lot of work, and he's very active, so I'm glad he's here tonight. I appreciate you being here. But without further ado, we'll get some information out to you. I'll finish up with a lot of the questions that you all submitted. Do we have any way that can submit more? Yeah, we'll put that out. If somebody has any more questions, please submit them in writing. It's a whole lot easier to keep up with everything because I do have a lot of data to go through. A few pages of it. I'm trying to consolidate it. I really appreciate everybody being here. And this means you care. That matters a lot. It matters to me and it matters to everybody around you. So please show up to these things, show up to our meetings, especially if they have anything to do with our surroundings or District 2, because it does matter when you do show up. But thank you. Here's Tim Callanan.
Thank you. I'm going to try and move as quickly as I can through some of these slides. I've tried to cut it down, but there's so much going on in this particular district with regards to infrastructure that I want to try and touch on as much of it as I can, because I know certain areas are important to certain folks, and so I don't want to miss anything. So if you need me to slow down, please just let me know. What I wanted to start off on is to give you an idea of what the county is dealing with regards to growth. And over a long period of time, the county, we're about 67,000 residents right now. From 2010, we were about just north of 50,000. So as a percentage rate, we've seen a very large, obviously, increase in growth. And you can kind of see it's been, since 2014, it's been pretty steady on an annual basis. And so one of the other things I want to point out is what that means for us on things like county taxes and our digest. Our digest is the accumulation of the value of all the properties. Obviously, the county runs predominantly on ad valorem taxes or property tax based on value. And so you can, the interesting thing I want to point out on this is that after 2009, the Great Recession, we had a situation where our digest actually shrunk substantially in value. And so that just means, even though we're continuing to grow in population, we had to provide the same level of services with substantially fewer dollars. So we dealt with a lot of pain in the years between about 2009, and it really took us to about 2018 just to get the digest back to where it was in the 2009. And within that period of time, our population probably grew by about 10 or 15%. So that area in between was really, the county had to cut back. We eliminated departments that we actually really needed. We tried to consolidate. We had to defer a lot of maintenance on a lot of things, really just to survive. And so, but the good news is that, since 2018, we have been seeing steady increases in the digest and getting caught up. One thing to keep in mind, you might look at this and say to yourself, well, that's just a massive increase in taxes. Well, keep in mind as well that when your value of your house increases and is reassessed on an annual basis, if the county does not roll back its millage on that, it's considered a tax increase, because that's what you're going to be seeing. You're going to be seeing if we don't roll back the taxes, you're going to be paying higher taxes basically for the same house that you had the year before. So over the years, the county has decreased its millage rate by about 20%. In the last 2 years alone, we've decreased it, but we've done what's called a full rollback. So we basically canceled out any of the assessed value increases overall on average for the last 2 years, about 8% or 4% a year. And so one thing also to bring up is, there's been some questions with regards to, warehousing, why are they doing it? And the biggest struggle we had in early 2009, our entire economy or tax base was based on, I don't know, you can't see it there, but those bottom lines there, I'm sorry, that blue line there in the middle, which is our residential millage rate. We had no balanced digest. We had no commercial, we had no industrial, and so when residential property values tanked, the county was really at a substantial risk. One of the things that the county wanted to do was get a more balance to their digest, so that we can take these hits, essentially provide more services without having to raise taxes. For the most part, residential housing actually costs more money, certainly in a area with great schools like Effingham County, than the property taxes that they collect, because a lot of folks are moving here to send their kids to Effingham schools, and so we've got to offset that kind of loss that we do on the individual houses into some other sort of tax base. Industrial was one of the ways that the board looked at that, and one of the interesting things, if you see this red line, it's kind of at the end there, it starts to jolt up. Well, that's the industrial tax base that we've been getting. And just to give you an idea of what that increase has been in that period of time. So in 2018, our industrial tax base, after all the exemptions, you all pay 40%. It's the same as commercial does. So it was 70 million in 2018. Last year, that assessed tax base was 351 million. That's a $275 million increase in a 4-year period of time. What does that equate into what your schools are getting from the industrial tax? It's an additional 6.9 million between the county and the school district. It is an additional $4.5 million just from that industrial growth that is going into the coffers of the school district. An additional 2.4 that are going into the counties, which is how we're paying for a lot of infrastructure that I'm going to discuss in a minute. But like I said, we've also reduced property taxes on this. And I do get a lot of questions about property taxes being high, but I want to throw some figures at you that the board is very proud of. Our property tax rate, this doesn't include the school, I'm just talking about what we're responsible for, which is county operations, is 6% lower than Bryan, 51% lower than Chatham County, 63% lower than Bullock County, and 150, Liberty County is 150% higher than ours. So we're at, of all of our surrounding counties, we're essentially operating at the most efficient. And so if anyone wants to see these figures, you can just let me know. So you have also approved 2, or actually 3 SPLOSTs. One of them is the regular SPLOST, which we will use for capital projects, which I'll show you in a minute, and T-SPLOST. This county does very well with the sales tax collections because we don't operate it just on what is collected from the residents. Our largest source of property tax that we collect in this county is from natural gas sales, from our 3 power plants that we have in the county, 2 owned by Georgia Power and 1 owned by Oglethorpe Power. All that natural gas that is used in that power generation is taxed, and then it helps to add the additional tax collections for the T-SPLOST and the SPLOST and the E-SPLOST for schools. So we've been doing very well on that. There's also been some change in the way folks purchase things. They're not going to the malls as often as they are ordering things at your house. And when you order things at your house, it's collected by your local jurisdiction, then by Chatham County. I also want to talk about growth when it comes to new home construction. There's a lot of discussion about how it's accelerating, and in actuality, it's been staying at a very steady pace. Over the last year, it's kind of declined a little bit, but if you look at that top line, that is our single-family home permits, and you can see that we in 2017 we were at 535. It's hovered around that 500 range, and then last year it went down to 404. Not that demand went down, it's just that they couldn't produce the houses that they normally would because of logistical constraints. But we've been kind of staying at a relatively steady pace, and that matches the first slide that I showed you of population growth. It's kind of stayed relatively steady year over year. And we think, the rate that we have now is probably sustainable. We don't want to go out there and start, there are these subdivisions in the surrounding counties, like Bryan and Chatham, that have 10,000 home subdivisions that are being approved. And we feel that these smaller subdivisions that are being approved, although we do understand the circumstances with growth, make it a little bit more sustainable, the 300s, the 200s, etc. And if you look at the other numbers, you can see that we can back up some of the numbers with regards to commercial and industrial growth, where we haven't really started that had an increase in the amount of subdivisions that are starting. So what we're starting to see is an uptick in the amount of commercial parks that are being created, but residential is staying pretty stable. The other thing that we wanted to let you know is that there's been discussions with regards to the county and do you have a plan? Well, the county's got a substantial amount of plans. And so this board has spent about $1.5 million over the last 3 years developing master plans where they did not exist. We've already approved a transportation master plan. And keep in mind, every time we do one of these master plans, there is there's public information sessions involved in all of these that we go to great deals to broadcast out when we have those meetings. And so we've completed the transportation master plan. We're working on the water and sewer and reuse master plan. We've completed our facility master plan. We are working on our stormwater master plan. As a matter of fact, we have a public information session on the stormwater master plan tomorrow night at our administration building in Springfield. We are wrapping up our parks facility master plan, and that's actually a pretty exciting one. I'm going to show you a couple slides from it tonight. We've completed our solid waste master plan. We were just awarded a grant to do a pedestrian, bicycle, and green space master plan. That is underway. We are redoing our zoning code and our comprehensive plan in the county to increase essentially the quality of the developments that are coming in here.
That's a good one. R5 is helping our quality?
I think greatly, yeah. And I mean, we can. What?
You don't have to address that, Tim.
Okay.
Everybody's treated to learn, sir. If you want to disrupt everybody so they can't learn, you can leave.
They aren't going to sit right here, which is my right. Thank you.
So another thing that we are working on, obviously, is our transportation project updates. And there's been a lot of questions as to how do you choose the roads that you redo? Well, the county came up with and contracted out to actually have every mile of county roads analyzed and determine the condition of them. So we can use that, and you can't really see this, I understand it's hard to visualize, but I'm just using this as an example that they created a map on it that goes through every single mile of the county and grades the roads, so we can use that as part of a basis for what roads get improved throughout the county during the year. We've also got some capacity improvement projects. We're trying to do an east-west corridor so folks over on this side of the county can more easily get over to Rincon. We're currently wrapping up a study on that with our partners in Rincon to come up with a plan on it. We're not ready to introduce it yet, but it is a plan that essentially solve that problem, and both Rincon and the county are proud of it. But going into the roads specifically for this district, you'll see in this district alone, we've got projects underway or completed in the last 2 years with a value in excess of $75 million. The red roads, and there's one thing that's incorrect here. Oh, Saddle Club Way should be red, but the green roads are all the roads that are completed, and those are all repavings. A lot of them were T-Splosh projects. We're 2 years into the T-Splosh, and all of the repavings, with the exception of Hodgeville Road, is completed. Goshen Road widening, Hodgeville, which is strategic 3-laning of Goshen Road, just to keep the traffic flowing on it. Hodgeville Road resurfacing, Effingham Parkway, they're either under design or under construction. And as I mentioned, Saddle Club Way, which for all you who live in Belmont Glen, is the main drag there. That is also under construction. That's going to be awarded for construction next month. We've also done a tremendous amount of intersections in T-Splosh. I've included all the intersections in here just to show you, out of all of them, all but one are in this district, or in District 2. The one that's not in District 2 is 80 and Old River Road, and that's going to be getting a roundabout. Blue Jay and Midland Road will be getting a roundabout. Hodgeville, Helmy, State Route 30 in Midland, also a roundabout. Blue Jay and Hodgeville, also a roundabout. Hodgeville and Goshen will be getting a roundabout. And Colic, Helmy, and Highway 30 will be getting a roundabout. And then on Scuffletown Road, even though that's recently being repaved, we're going to be doing some turn lanes to get onto Scuffletown, onto Hodgeville from Scuffletown, and vice versa, and doing the same for Forest Haven. Now, I can go over these afterwards. There's really not going to be enough time to go through every single one, but if you all want to see a particular one, that is Highway 80 and Old River Road. I believe that's Blue Jay and Midland. That is Hodgeville and Colic-Helmy. That is SR 30. And like I said, I don't want to take time away from these gentlemen, and so at the end of the meeting, I can go back and put these back up if you want to see them individually. There's a lot of them, so. That is Blue Jay and Hodgeville. That is Hodgeville and Goshen. This is really tough to read, but it's just to show that it's actually been designed, Colic, Helmy, and Highway 30. And then these are the turn lanes. These are the ones for Forest Haven. Those are the ones for Scuffletown. We're also doing a whole series of roundabouts related to Effingham Parkway. The goal is to make Effingham Parkway kind of a non-stop route, so no traffic signals or full stop signs for the entire length. Where it connects to Blue Jay, there will be a roundabout there. This one looks kind of funny, but this is in the Omnitrax Industrial Park. There will be a road that goes east-west on that. It just doesn't show here yet. They're just designing the roundabout so when they connect the road that connects McCall to Hodgeville, you'll be entering it from a roundabout. And that's Goshen and Effingham Parkway. So there's a lot of roundabouts that are either under design or about to go under contract within the next few months. We're also going to bring up T-Splosh 2023 is coming up this year, where we want to tackle some of the other roads, like I'll give you examples: Blue Jay, the full extension of it; McCall, the full extension of it; Low Ground is another one that we get a lot of questions on, additional turn lanes and roundabouts, and then a ton of resurfacing. And so we're hope to get that back on, get the ball rolling on that, so it can be on the ballot come November. Also included in T-Splosh is drainage. Westwood Heights is one of the areas. It's also in this district that we are doing a full design of their drainage system right now. There'll be a contract hopefully going out over the summer on that. That is a long-term problem that we're hoping to finally resolve for them. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to have a parks master plan coming out. There will be a public meeting within the next month on that. That will be our PIO will be broadcasting. It goes over our current park conditions, recommendations for improvements, and where we need new parks. And so all that's in there. And just to give you an idea, this is the second and final phase of Clarence Morgan Park that's going to be included in that. We're going to step up what we are offering over at Sand Hill as well. And the goal is to really bring all of our parks up to a single standard. And that is the Clarence Morgan Park standard. And the first park we did on that was McCall Park, to bring it to that level. And our goal is to get all of our parks there. And then the last one, this one doesn't get a lot of talk about, but we've awarded the contract for design on it. The county owns a 250-acre lake right off of Old River Road near 80. Right off of 80 near Old River Road in Sand Hill. And we were talking at times about doing using it as a water source, but the board has really decided that it is an amenity that the county needs to be able to use, and so we're going to be we're in the current process of designing the park around it with boat launches for fishing, walking trails, the potential for a beach on there. It's that big and the water is that pristine, so keep your eyes out for that. But that's it, and I know it was quick, but I didn't want to take away from these gentlemen when they want to speak, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all have.
Where's the park for the area right down here in South, Effingham?
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that was addressed in the study is the need to have a park in this region. We are currently looking at locations. Obviously, it's kind of land is expensive down here. And we don't want to make, and so we are discussing where we think we can pick up a decent regional sized park for somewhere near Highway 30, Collicounty, and Hodgeville. So we're working on that now. And the study did express the need for that. Yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about the building permits that have been issued,
Yes.
you said that you issued 8 million industrial permits in 2022?
No, not permits. 8 million? Square feet.
Okay, let's have that.
Yeah, square feet.
Are the roundabouts online where we can see them?
We're just wrapping up the design on them, so I should be able to get them online probably within 2 weeks. What I don't want to do is put something that changes and then because it does involve some right-of-way acquisition on these. And so
Be on the county website?
we will get them on the county website, yes, sir. They're not there yet just because they haven't completed the design of them all.
Tim, would you give them a few timelines on the progress of the roundabouts and the 3 miles?
Sure, and so we've got 3 roundabouts that are on Hodgeville Road alone, which is Hodgeville Blue Jay, Hodgeville Goshen, and Hodgeville Colic Helmy. And so on those, our hopes is to award that with the repaving of Hodgeville Road simultaneously, so we don't do one construction and then dig it up after that. So our hope is to get that, if we can get the right-of-way locked down, awarded over the summer, towards the end of the summer. But in the meantime, if we can get some of the individual roundabouts in the late spring awarded, like Blue Jay and Midland, let's say, it doesn't really require a tremendous amount of right-of-way. It's fairly simple as these goes. We're going to try and get those done quicker. So the goal is to try and get as many of these things under construction as quickly as possible.
What about Hodgeville Road there, Highway 30? That's actually Chatham County.
Yes, and so we had, so for all you who don't know, that is Chatham County, but it's an intersection that obviously predominantly benefits Effingham residents. And so the state has stepped in with, they're using federal dollars to put a roundabout there. But the problem is, because they're using federal dollars, it puts all of these environmental requirements on it that makes the project takes twice as long as it normally should. And so we went up to Atlanta and had a meeting with GDOT on that, expressed our concern about, well, I forget what they said, 2026 or something like that, that it was going to get completed. And we're like, there's too much pain between now and then. There's got to be something you can do in the interim. And they informed us that within between 4 and 6 months from now, there'll be a traffic light there until the roundabout can go in there. And so, and we, that's Hodgeville and 30. And I will tell you, and I'm kind of taking away all the good news from the elected. So, but I will tell you on that as well. You know, we've tried to do some working with Port Wentworth to get some officers out there in the morning with mixed success, but we may continue to try and do that in the morning if we can get their additional cooperation on it. Yes, ma'am.
When you say you're going to resurface Hodgeville, is there
Yeah.
any way it's going to be widened or?
Yeah, and so our-
turn lanes or whatever, explain that.
Yeah, and so we had them look at some of the other intersections, and that's why Scuffletown and Forest Haven are on there as well. There'll be some additional turn lanes that go into those areas. And then the problem with a lot of our roads, like you'll notice the difference when you drive on a county road and a state road. State road, the lanes are wider, right? They're generally 12 feet wide, when county roads will be about 11 or 10. And so when we do these resurfacings, we generally, if there's right of way for us to do, we're gonna try and bring them out to the 12 feet and give us a little bit more shoulder where possible. So in that case, we will both be wider lanes and also adding some turn lanes.
Yeah, because I see a lot of kids, or even adults, are riding bikes out on Hodgeville, and there's really not a bike
You're right, and we're actually, one of the reasons why we're doing this bike plan is we're trying to figure out ways that where the residents live, we can do kind of, even if it's not on a main road, to get bike paths that connect neighborhoods and schools and stuff like that. So that's why we're doing the plan on that as well, because these roads are dangerous for pedestrians and bikers. Yes, sir.
Is there any truth to the rumor that Effingham is wanting to make another truck route like they did one time, Blue Jay Road?
Well, I can tell you that we are going to beef up Blue Jay Road. So let me explain how our truck ordinance
I
works.
remember about 6 months ago, a year ago, there was all kind of signs on the road, no truck route, no truck route.
Right, and I'm gonna tell you how our truck, what a truck route is, and how that, how we have to address it. And so we had no truck ordinance in the county until about 3 or 4 years ago. And so state law says that trucks aren't allowed on that trucks over a certain weight aren't allowed on county roads. You'll see those signs, but the problem is the state does not allow the county to certify its own scales to weigh the trucks when they're pulled over. Only state law enforcement can do that. And so we had a state law that we could not enforce, and the state obviously was not sending the highway patrol to regulate our streets. So we created our own ordinance, which is based on the class of trucks, right? But you have to make it so trucks can go from point A to point B. So we said any state route is a truck route automatically, and that Old Augusta Road is a truck route automatically. But the problem is, if you can't go on a truck route, then you can go on any route in the county that is the closest distance to a truck route or to your destination or entry point. So what that basically means is the trucks are basically having their choice, because there's no east-west truck route in the county, of what road they want to use to get from point A to point B, get from 17 to 21. And so they've been using Blue Jay. You can see that by the condition of the road. And so when we repave Blue Jay, we're going to repave it to GDOT standards, which the thicker truck pavement and the wider lanes and the wider shoulders, because trucks are going to use it. Even under the current ordinance, trucks are allowed to use it. And so we're going to make the road so they can handle it at least. Yes, sir.
one example, Midland Road, it's got no through traffic.
Yes.
Truck on each end. You can sit right down in my house in Midland Road, and you will see dozens of them come by.
And, go ahead.
And
Sure.
If they would approach somebody also, a police officer, and said, we cannot send a police officer there during the day to watch these trucks going down the road.
And that's what the problem
There's
is.
some kind of fine.
Well, there is a fine. But the problem is, you know, it's exactly what the officer said is, you know, using the resources all day to pull over the trucks. The county, any moving violation, it can only be enforced by the sheriff's office, right? And so, you know, so we did the truck ordinance, but it has to be enforced by the sheriff's office, but they can only enforce so much with the resources that they have. And so, so if it's become a continual problem, and I don't mean to pass the buck on to Sheriff Jimmy, he's one of the best sheriffs I've ever worked with in my career. But he when I have an ask for him with regards to truck, you know, he'll usually get folks out there.
The way you just worded it, you presented it, there's no doubt in my mind, Blue Jay Road is gonna be your east-west from 17 to 21, there's no doubt.
Well, and there's no way around it unless there's separate east-west truck route is built. And if Effingham Parkway costs us $60 million to build, you know, it's going to cost us that amount of money. So, yes, and that's why we want to build. If that's going to be the case, by default, it's you know, trucks are going to use that. We're going to build it so it can handle it. And so, but that's that's the best answer I can give on that. Is they, you know, kind of interfering with interstate commerce gets really touchy, and we're going to try and make our roads so they can accommodate it the best we can. She was slightly ahead of you, so I'll do ladies first. Yes, ma'am. No, you, right back there, yes.
So what is the approved program?
Right, currently, approved truck routes are every state route in the county, so 17, 80, 21, 30, etc. And Old Augusta Road from 21, which is a county road, from 21 to 275 or Ebenezer. Those are the currently approved truck routes. However, like I said, doesn't mean the trucks can't use the other roads. It just means they can only use them to get from one to the other. And they're doing that aggressively, so I'm aware of that. But for this gentleman's case of Midland, there's no excuse there'll be no excuse to use that when you can, when there's plenty of other state routes, 17, that they can use, which is a truck route. So every truck that is on Midland should be pulled over, unless it's delivering somewhere on Midland.
Or a log truck or something.
Yeah, or a log truck that's doing work on there. But for these east-west, you know, really, it's kind of, we're somewhat limited in what we can do because they have no other options. Yes, sir.
Quick question in regards to the redesigned intersection at Blue Jay and McCall. I believe it was
Yes.
sometime last year at one of the either planning commission meetings, something around that, where they had already exceeded that intersection there, and they were looking for another study. When they redo Blue Jay, are they gonna turn that intersection into a roundabout?
Where there's a three-way stop right now, right?
Ish.
Yeah, and so our thought is to take that in consideration, because the three-way stop works great under the current traffic weight that's on it right now. But the models that we got were that as that increases, and particularly as Effingham Parkway opens up, because it'll connect directly to Blue Jay, our estimations is that that'll get into, you know, the failing grade level of the intersection, and so then we will then have to turn around and do an upgrade there of the and probably do a roundabout or a traffic light, one of the two.
Was there a reason that there was not a roundabout design specifically there when they just redid one just on the road at 17?
Well, when they did that one, they determined based on the, 17 and Blue Jay, it was where you're talking about, it's a much heavier traffic road. And so when they did that one, the engineers at the time that designed it, which was 3 years prior to when it was built, determined that the two-way stop was adequate for the traffic flow. Two-way stop was an epic failure. Oh, I'm sorry, the one-way stop was an epic failure. I mean, that was clear. Actually, it was a combination of things that cured it. The speed reduction had a more effect than the three-way stop, because once we did while we were waiting for the stop signs to come in, because we did the lighted stop signs, we did a speed reduction, and all the traffic accidents stopped, just on the speed reduction alone. But it ends up putting those extra stop signs in there really didn't slow down that intersection. It will once it gets more traffic, and we're aware of that, and our plan is to either put a traffic light or a roundabout in there.
So in order to try and get ahead of what you see coming, when are the results of that traffic study, I think it was Leslie had mentioned last year, will be available? And is there any reasonable timeline within the next few years?
Well, it's
that
funding.
you might be
It's funding, so we'll probably put that as a project that'll be funded with T-SPLOST 2023. And so that'll be one of the roundabout projects.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think the roundabouts are terrific. I think they work great. But you think of Hodgeville, you think about Hodgeville and Midland Road.
Mhm.
Those people, all right, those people coming up on the Highway 30, they gonna have the right of way to turn to get on 30 before the people on 30 do. So them people coming down Hodgeville, they gonna be tickled to death. They gonna go right around the circle and go that way, because there's no traffic on 30 coming from 21 in the morning. So they gonna be, and the people on Midland gonna be, but it's gonna back traffic up on Highway 30, unbelievable.
And they're dealing with that problem right now on Bent Boulevard and 30. And so I'm gonna tell you how the state is looking at the potential solution on that. It's very complicated. I mean, it's a timed stop, because that problem that you're mentioning only happens in the rush hour, right? Yeah. So they have a solution for how to deal with when folks will not let other entry points in the roundabout in. It's some sort of time flashing stop type of thing, but it's under consideration. Yes.
See on merge exits, like interstate.
Yeah. And that lady over there was next, and then I'll get to you.
I have a question about Scuffletown Road. I live on there. You're talking about a turn lane off of Hodgeville to go down Scuffletown?
Yes.
Okay, so the traffic off of Hodgeville is gonna come down Scuffletown? Because it already takes me 15 minutes in the morning to take my son from the middle of Scuffletown down to Effingham Lane. It takes me 15 minutes in the morning. So all that traffic is gonna come on that road.
Well, I don't think it's going to increase. It's not going to increase the traffic on the road. The goal is to actually really, if you want to look at it at the end, it really has to do with the left turns onto Scuffletown as well, blocking all the Hodgeville lanes. And so, I mean, it's a crossroad, which is why we spent all that money repaving it, because it was getting that abuse. But people are going to take the shortest distance between 2 points,
And
unfortunately.
some days I sit in my driveway waiting for people who can't get out.
Well, the hope is, obviously, that issue gets resolved once they solve the Hodgeville 30 problem, which is, which is causing everyone to bail out off of Hodgeville or 30 to get on your road. And so that's why they're doing that. Somewhere over here, yes, ma'am.
It looks like there's a lot more commercial and industrial growth in the last couple of years.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that gonna slow down, or is that gonna just keep
We're,
escalating higher and higher?
we anticipate it's going to slow down. We're starting to see that it's slowed down. We're trying to push for as best we can, but you kind of on the commercial side rather than industrial. So we can get more shopping and restaurant options for everybody. But it's only a matter, you know, they look at numbers and rooftops and so on and so forth, and so we're trying to create opportunities, because that's what folks ask us for. But,
The question. I couldn't hear her question.
oh, her question, do you think industrial and commercial will continue to grow? But our plan is that it's gonna start to begin to flatten out, and if it grows, then we'll deal with it, but, that we view this economy as beginning to kind of flatten out over the next few years, and so we're not anticipating that additional.
Only other question with the commercial, can they find a way to keep some of the trees, not do so much clear cutting, or is there any plan?
Yes, well,
And neighborhoods.
yeah, and so one of the things that we tried to do, I'll say on the commercial, you were trying to limit obviously commercial to commercial corridors, right? We don't want to put it on all collector roads and, like Midland, you don't want a commercial corridor there. But, maybe certain areas around where there's high density in development, we can, you have certain areas of Hodgeville that may be, good for a supermarket or something to that effect. But whatever those areas are, and there are our own code changes that we're doing, and your commissioner is leading the charge on this. What Springfield has done is they've created what's called a kind of a commercial corridor overlay district, which basically puts a higher level of quality of what they want in the looks, particularly from the street, of those commercial entities that come in. So they're not coming in and cutting down all the trees, having a big ugly parking lot in front, and then a building, right? They're trying to save the trees. They're going to try and do islands, landscape islands, whatever they can to increase the aesthetics of the commercial areas that come in. And that is going to be included in our code revamp that we're working on right now. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned resurfacing of some of the roads.
Yes.
And Zipper Road and some of those other old ash roads that are deteriorating and potholes are being filled often. Is that on the list of things that we resurface?
Okay. So the answer is yes. We're working at, they're more expensive to do in some cases, right? If it's a main drag, like Scuffletown costs us a fortune. Courthouse extension costs us a lot of money because, the first option is to dig up all that ash, take it to a landfill, spend all that money, then pay to put more material down there to put a new road down. We've come up with a way that saves us money in doing that. It kind of turns it into this type of cement that creates a base, but it's expensive. And so on the main roads, and I'll give you, I think Zipper is one of them. I think Low Ground is definitely one of them, right? That's an ash road that is, goes completely east-west. And so those will probably be what we call these full-depth reclamation roads that we'll be doing. Those will be expensive. But we've experimented and actually found for some of these neighborhood roads that if they're a certain condition, we can find a less expensive way to pave them, so they won't, you won't have that ash road. It's going to take us time, but we're attacking every ash road that we have, and in the meantime, we're going to step up what we call our chip seal program. So some of these roads, lesser used roads, will continue to get improved until we can get them repaved. So we do have that, in our targets.
So should we continue to just kind of touch base with you and say, hey, we're still concerned about the road, or do y'all already have a priority of?
Reach out to your commissioner, because we're coming up with prior to T-Splosh, the way we paid for roads, we get like $1 million, not even $1 million a year in grant money from the state. And it was woefully inadequate, which is why our roads got to the condition they are. T-Splosh has really helped on that. We're going to be adding some property tax dollars to that as well, augmenting that, so we can really get caught up. So definitely reach out to your commissioner and let him know. Can you look at this road to see if it's a good candidate for T slots.
Some of the stuff I've got probably already in the questions.
Yeah, so, I'm gonna, can I,
Pass on to Jamie.
Are we ready to talk about subdivision? We're ready to talk about subdivision. I hope he said his voice is hurt, but I hope his ears ain't coming.
well,
Might be hurt.
this might be easy enough. Did anyone submit questions in?
Yeah, I've got tons of
Okay.
them. We'll go through.
I'm thinking we probably don't need to write them in. We can,
Well, I've already got them.
oh, no, those, yes.
Yes. 'cause
Yeah,
they
those,
are-
yes.
they're already- I've already got some of the questions that they've been asking.
So you don't need additional questions?
No, I'm
Well,
saying we can get it
take
from the
some
audience.
additional ones, But I would wait to see what I've got. I've been collecting questions for a couple of weeks.
Right.
So I have a lot of material to go through. You want to, Jamie, you want to speak a minute before I get into that?
You take it.
Good evening. I'm Jamie Deloach. That's about all I've got now. Sorry. I know Tim just went through a lot of information. Jan?
I have a follow-up question about truck routes. So if what I'm being told is that warehouses are gonna eventually be from behind Lowe's all the way to Hodgeville and out on the other side of Hodgeville, how are you gonna keep Hodgeville from not being truck routes?
Effingham Parkway. Some of the warehouses that are going to be on that track, they are actually going to access, and this microphone's coming in and out, sorry. Sorry about this. So, some of the warehouses, they are getting access to the Effingham Parkway, and that is the main purpose for it, because we want to keep all the truck traffic we can off of Hodgeville. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Did she say that there was gonna be warehouses on the other side of Hardware, on the other side of Hodgeville?
On the other side of Hodgeville,
Is that what she said? Is that true?
There's,
Coming from
here,
here.
warehouses on both sides of Hodgeville. Both sides.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not true. And I've got that in my questions as well. I'll go through.
okay, Roger will address that. Okay,
Jamie, I got a question.
yes, sir.
Being you on the, you and Mr. Burnett on. Tell me, Highway 21 is a total nightmare. I know it's got to do with money. Why wasn't Effingham Parkway 4-lane instead of a little 2-lane road? I just cannot understand that.
Well, you answered it at the very beginning. It has to do with funding.
Money.
Yes, sir. So before the recession in 2008, we had federal funds. That was going to be 4-lane from Highway 30 to Guyton on Highway 119.
It was going to originally be 4-lane?
Originally 4-lane, but would make it all the way to Guyton on Highway 119.
Did they go ahead and buy enough right of way, they can always come back to 4-lane, or they gotta go through all that again, is it wide, to be made wide enough for 4-lane?
We're hoping that we've got enough right way to where we can put 2 additional lanes. Yeah. Okay. So, if y'all bear with me here, no matter what kind of road system we design for the county, eventually we've got to have help from the state. That's just a fact. So Effingham County is a part of the I-16 JDA corridor. And what that is, that was the organization that was involved with getting Hyundai here. So the governor had to give the funds to.
You got a voice.
He's bringing you some batteries.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Is that any better? No? Okay. So the governor used the JDA because he doesn't want to give money to a single county. So we had a 4-county, hold
Okay, oh, uses the big ones.
Can y'all hear me decently?
Yes.
Hear me okay? So the governor it looks better, and he might not appreciate me saying this, but it just looks better when you give money to a regional project. So back in 2014, Effingham County, Bullitt County, Bryan County, and Chatham County formed this joint development authority because we thought Volvo was coming back in 2014. Instead, they went to where Tim was. So Tim took Volvo from us. And so we kept it in place just so that we felt if we ever got a large employer, we could pull our assets together and we could attract a large employer. So finally, here recently, that plan finally worked out. So Hyundai is coming to Bryan County. So as I previously said, no matter what kind of road system that we create in Effingham County, we've got to have help from the state. So with the ports continuing to grow, with traffic continuing to increase, and now you've got Hyundai, who has a very aggressive timeline on when they want to be open in 2025, that has really got the attention of the state. So the state is currently doing a regional transportation study on our 4 counties. We are supposed to get the results from that study sometime in April of this year. So we're trying to do what we can with SPLOST and T-SPLOST, but additionally, we're hoping to get help from the state as well. So they understand the importance of this region with the port and now with Hyundai. As Tim said earlier, whoever voted for SPLOST or T-SPLOST, thank you. This was the first single county T-SPLOST we've ever had. And that penny has to go strictly to transportation. And believe me, Chatham County is sick right now because they did not pass it. And they are extremely upset. I recently talked to some of those elected officials this past November. We went on a tour of the Hyundai plant in Montgomery, Alabama, and it is devastating to them. And I know it's devastating to a lot of us because we travel in Chatham County. This current T-SPLOST that we're in, we allocated $19.5 million to District 2, to this area.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So we allocated $19.5 million out of the current T-SPLOST we're in. And this is the first single county T-SPLOST we've ever had. And believe me, I definitely understand that we need to spend a lot more money. We hear a lot of good ideas, and it's not that we disagree with folks when they come with them, but it comes down to a funding. We try to do what we can with what we got. We try not to raise the millage rate to increase your property taxes to get more revenue. So T-SPLOST and SPLOST are great revenue sources for a local government entity. We've got I would say a good problem. We've collected that money about 2 years quicker than what we thought. It's normally on a 5-year time period, but we will collect that money in about 3 years. So we will have T-SPLOST back on the ballot this November, even though it's going to be an off-election year, but we're running the risk that we could lose that penny if we don't vote it back in. So we will have it on the ballot again. So as the lady said earlier, if there's any road that you live on, you're concerned about, now is the time to talk to your commissioner about that road. Because with T-SPLOST, once that road is on the list, it's there. It has to be specific. With SPLOST, it can be the general description, but when it comes to T-SPLOST, you've got to have the projects listed. So if you're concerned about anything in particular, like I said, now's the time to talk with your commissioner. We talked about the traffic light at Highway 30 in Hodgeville. I talked with Brad Saxon. I don't know if some of you know him, but he's the deputy commissioner for Georgia Department of Transportation, and he lives in Effingham County. So that's a good guy to know. Does anybody live in Staffordshire that's here? No. Westwood? Okay. I know sometimes the water and sewer stuff is not as exciting, but we've We've got the design plan for the drainage underway now, and we are hoping to have that completed in April of this year. So we'll have more information coming out on that on the drainage system. Earlier, we talked about recreation plans. We've got a lot going on. It's a very detailed plan. One of the things that we did talk about at our workshop in Atlanta is we do recognize that we need to look at some property here in District 2 with the density of the population. So that has been talked about, it's been verbalized, and the plan actually showed us that we needed a park in this area. So there'll definitely be more to come on that. We recently received, what is it, $250,000 grant? We recently received a $250,000 grant that we can use for biking trails. I get that request more than what I thought I would. I'm up on the north end of the county, and there's a lot of Saturdays and Sundays I see large groups of folks riding bikes. And let's see. We're in the process of updating our land use maps, updating our county comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan, we do that. Typically, you do it every 10 years, but if you see a need to do it before that, you can speed up that timeline. And I would say one of the things I said in the stakeholders meeting for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and one thing I was surprised, I've got young kids, so I'm normally around a basketball gym or a ball field, but the number one item that came up that people wanted is not ball fields, is walking trails and just open space. That was the number one thing. I forgot how many hundred people were interviewed, but it was not a ball field. So I found that very interesting. So we will incorporate that into our master plan. We've got a lot of things planned throughout the county, and that's really all I've got. I know y'all got some specific questions on certain developments, but glad to be here with y'all tonight, and I'll help out answer any questions I can. Yes, sir.
I just had one quick question, and I don't know where the money came from, if it was GDOT money or federal money or whatever, but what they were putting down the center island, from Sylvania down to Brinton, that barrier,
Yes, that is a state project.
that's a state project, so the state is that didn't take any money from us locally?
No, sir. That's strictly funded by the state. Yeah. All right, I'll turn it over to Roger now. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'll see if I can get over this pile and stuff, but got a big turnout for questions, and I really appreciate it. Lets me know that people care, like I said earlier, and that matters a lot to me because I care. This board cares, and it doesn't seem like it sometimes, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, an enormous amount of work, and I'm just a small part of that because a lot of it's with our staff and people working tirelessly like Jamie and everybody else. But I'll just start right out with growth. One thing I'd like to talk about before I get into some of the questions is, ask Till to put this map up. Give some feedback here. If I look at our county from this point of view, and everybody knows where the port is, right? Down here. And nobody likes growth. I mean, it's a change of life. When I moved here, I wasn't looking forward to a lot of growth either. I've been here 20 years, love this place. One of the reasons why I chose to serve on this board is because I was asked to, and just everybody was really nice to me when I started my business here. And I got to live the American dream to start a business here, where everybody was just paving the way for me to do that, and just very kind to me. The Effingham people are just awesome in a lot of different ways. So I thought this is a great way to give back, and it is. I love to serve. With our growth that's happening currently, a lot of it happens around the port. It's port related, as we know. Where the big trucks come in, that's what I do for a living, big trucks. Ironically, I'm probably one of the hardest on the trucks. I've created some of our ordinances, or helped create some of the ordinances that restrict trucks, because I know about them and I know the dangers of them. I know how safe or unsafe they are. It's 80,000 pounds of bullet coming down the road, and we have to make sure we take care of that in the right way so we're all safe around them. And safety is a big concern of mine. So we try to be good to our truckers because everything we have that we see around us, including our groceries, get to us by trucks. So we need those trucks. We just need to be safe. We need them to be safe. So we allow guys in one of our ordinances to take their trucks home if that's their way of life and way of living, and I think we should do that. But where we just changed an ordinance is we stopped allowing containers and big trailers to follow behind them. That's the difference between 18 or 20,000 pounds of truck and 80,000 pounds of truck on our small roads and back roads. We make changes like that all the time, so if you see somebody doing that illegally, let us know. Trucks can get on these different roads, but I've talked to Sheriff McDuffie several times about it, going up and down Goshen, and he made a really good point the other day. He said, Roger, where are we going to pull them over at? And I went, maybe Grace Community Church parking lot? I don't know. There's not any room to do it, so we got to come up with some innovative ideas. But I think once we get some of the traffic stuff in place, we'll see some reduction. And I got some questions on that as well that I answer in a minute. But our port is down here, and we got a lot of stuff coming with this Joint Development Authority. I think 740 jobs with the new, is it Suwan? Seiwan. I figured I'd butcher that name. Just in Effingham alone. We need rooftops to support this industry. I originally grew up in a town called Nashville, Georgia. And I know you're going to say, where the heck is Nashville, Georgia? As most people do. But it's about 6,000 people where I grew up. And it was 6,000 people when I graduated, and it's about 6,000 people now. And when I grew up, all we could expect to do was leave. And that was a horrible atmosphere to be in for me, because I had nothing to come back to. My mom and dad lived and died there. It was not a good way to grow up, when all I could look forward to was leave. So we got a chance to start building some jobs and building some futures for our people here, for our kids and grandkids. That was exciting to me, because now my kids can come back and live in the same county that I'm in, that I'm trying to create jobs in. And it's not all warehousing, it's a lot of great skilled labor. So we don't all have to go to Savannah to go to work. We can go work right here and make the same amount of money or more. Our mid-level income is above most of the counties around us. We live a good life here in Effingham. But as we're growing and doing that, there's a lot of growing pains. And I got to thinking about this, and what if we didn't do any of this? What if we didn't grow and we just said, okay, we're not going to do any of this. We don't want the rooftops, we don't want the industry. Well, since we're at the port and we're having all this going on around us, then we're going to get all that traffic, because they're going to grow in the county above us and around us. It's got to go somewhere. And if they're going to welcome it with open arms, we're going to get all the traffic and zero revenue out of that. And you see what kind of revenue we're getting from our industry. So now it's not all on our backs, our homeowners, but it's on industry and commercial to help pay these taxes so we have better roads, better way of life. We're encouraging commercial every way we can. Because that's what happens. Our ports here, regardless, they're going to come right through us to get to the port, whether they're manufacturing or whatever, because a lot of them either import stuff to build things, or they're importing goods, or they're making things and they're exporting goods. That's why they're around Savannah, period. So, if you look at it that way, I'd rather have some of the growth here, and we're trying to balance that. We're working on our land use maps right now to balance that. So we limit, there's a lot of industry, but it's a small percentage of our county. So please keep that in mind when you think about the growth. Nobody likes it, it's not 10,000 houses in an area. It might be 300, it might be 150. So we're trying to limit it in that way, and it's not gonna get big. And I know you don't like the R5, but we're trying to limit a lot of that. But a lot of us a lot worse than that. But think about this. Not all of us can afford a 4-bedroom house on a 1-acre lot, or a 10-acre lot, or a 5-acre lot. And this was made known to me a couple of years ago. I had somebody come up and say, Roger, I love all these big places and it's a wonderful place to live, but I just need an apartment. I need a townhome. I can't afford all that. I need a roommate in a townhome. And we have to think about those folks too. Everybody can't grow up and do what we can do and have a half-acre lot or an acre lot. There's other needs besides that. But we're going to need people to work and grow this county. So we've got to look at a good, strong mixture. And all our latest plans include that. We're looking at more green space, more walking trails, a little bit of everything, as you can see. It's I forget how many pages our rec plan is, but it's huge and it's exciting. We've got a lot of good stuff going on. I love the Atlas Mine area. It's going to be beautiful. It'll be another place we have to have a lot of fun with for our families. But our growth. Here's a question: when was the last traffic survey for Highway 30? A lot of it's going to get answered already, so I might repeat some stuff. From Highway 30 from Hodgeville to Jabez Jones, and what it showed, that's a state road. They're always looking at that road. In fact, I think that's how they determined they were going to do a roundabout at Hodgeville and 30, and that's how that came about. It's not going to come soon enough for me, and I know not anybody else. But thank God we're getting a traffic light, so hopefully that will solve some of that problem and alleviate it. I will say this about development and roads. You know, speaking of highway, what's McCollin, Blue Jay. And we missed the mark on that. And the reason why we missed the mark, Tim explained to you, is because we had old data and we grew fast. And by the time we got it built, the time we got funding and everything in, which takes so much time, so much bureaucracy, by the time we got the thing built, it was outdated. And traffic patterns changed. I'll give you another example. 30 meeting 21. They built that and had to redesign the whole thing. Why? They didn't anticipate the traffic pattern. They spent all the money on the studies, boom, everything changed. You know, so sometimes you've got to do some things and see how they get affected. If not, you could spend millions of dollars on infrastructure of our taxpayers' money, my money and your money, on something that doesn't even work. So sometimes you have to do this to see what the cause and effect is, to see what really is going to happen. Patterns change. Our patterns can change with all this development that we have coming up. Instead of people all going to Gulfstream to work, which that's a small city in itself, we'll have other places to go. That's going to change the traffic pattern in itself. Instead of everybody going south, we're going to start seeing people go north. There's 1,500, I believe, jobs just in Hyundai itself. 740 on the other side of our county. And that's going to keep growing and beyond in Bullitt County and other places. And we're going to see some growth in the north end of our county because of that too. And I think you'll start seeing some of that change for the better for us. And Tim stole our thunder on the traffic light anyway, so he beat us to it. That was a win. I thought at least we got something going on. We've been pushing that forever.
When did you say that was going to win?
The traffic light, 4 to 6 months. They're already buying equipment and getting it ready. When is the county plan that will create additional roadways going to be released? We talked about that. Like I said, we've hit a lot of these things. Why are we not encouraging more growth towards the north end of the county where they have actual cities to support it? We're going to start doing that. I think that'll come naturally, especially as we get these other things developed. We'll have more places to work, and we're going to grow. Here's a driveway question. I might need some help with them. Can driveways be a required length to at least allow 2 cars deep? I know we had somebody who had some concern about some driveways that only have 1 car available in there.
Okay.
We'll speak to that for a second.
It just ends up a lot of street parking that they don't have.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me actually say, we've tried to address parking in a couple of different ways when it comes to get cars off the street. One of the shortfalls that we had in our subdivision ordinance was that we gave the builders an option of a 22-foot wide street, but we said, but you can't park on it, right? Well, they're like, oh, we'll take that, and we'll just say no parking, and then they leave, and all the residents park on it, and you can't get by. And so we told them that your minimum now is 28 feet, and it's 28 feet, and it's going to be parking on one side, and you have to designate it, which side is parking. So it makes it so there's more room to get by. That's one thing. The second thing is, I believe if it was not in the R5 standard, it is in the code revamp that we're doing, where we address on property parking capacity per unit. I know we're doing that on any multifamily that we have under R3. We've increased that requirement to how many parking spaces that they need to have and how many off-site parking spaces they need to provide. So we are looking at both of those in there. And so if it's not in there already under the R5, the problem is a a lot of our subdivisions are already approved under an old zoning. So some of these ones that may be coming out may be under the old standards, unfortunately. But you know, the newer stuff from this point on will have those requirements in it.
So there's not a minimum depth for a lot in a subdivision, because I kind of think that's where that problem is the lots, smaller lots are very
A
short.
minimum from the house from the road,
Right.
so that they can have one.
Well, and that's the point I was kind of bringing up about on property parking requirements, so that they can't make it, you know, that so you can't park a pickup in your driveway without it blocking the sidewalk. And so I just don't remember in my head whether we included that in the R5 or we punted it until we finish the full code revamp. But that is under consideration, the distance from the sidewalk to the house to prevent exactly what you're saying. So too wide and enough depth so that you can park, you know, a full-length vehicle in there.
Can you clarify what the R5 is? R3 is multifamily home.
Yeah, and
R5 is-
so I'll start from the beginning. So R1 is kind of, we have the least amount of restrictions, but they're the biggest lots, right? 100 feet, I think, is your minimum lot width on those. But you don't have to do any sort of open space requirements or even sidewalks on that. Then you do R2 is duplexes. We rarely have any of those. R3 is multifamily, which, you know, will be your townhomes and condominiums, apartments, that sort of things. R4 mobile home parks, which we don't see many of them. And then we originally went to R6, which really was just density with very little requirements. And it just wasn't working out well. A lot of the problems out of here tonight were because of that. And so we tried to address that in the new R5, and then say we're no longer doing R6, it's going to be R5, and it's a little bit lesser density, we're requiring more usable open space, so they can't say a pond is their open space. For amenities, parks, that sort of thing. There are some design standards on them that if you want this increased density, it's still more dense than R1. If you want that increased density, you're going to have to include some design standards on it so it doesn't look so cookie cutter. And I'm probably missing a few other things on that, but parking is the other thing, and street width is are some other ones we put in there. We just put a lot more requirements in the R5 than we did R6. And R5 is not multifamily. So if you've got a neighborhood that's a mix of townhomes and single family, they've got to get they've got to either do two separate zonings for each, or do what's called a PD, which allows for a mixture of that. So, but R5 is to try and solve the mistakes of R6, if that makes sense.
Did you say R6 went away?
The R6 is gone.
Yeah, and so anything that's existing R6, they can continue to build, right? That's already approved, but you cannot no longer apply to rezone your property to R6.
Okay, because there was one at a big planning board meeting last week.
I think that
R6?
I think that was R5.
Probably R5.
Either it was R5 or PD. I don't remember. I know which one you're talking about. You're talking about 30 in Midland?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was PD because there was some townhomes in there and some single-family homes.
Right.
And so there was that might have been that PD in there, but they can't do R6.
Okay. Is that, they never mentioned the PD part, I don't think, that night.
And they may have simply said, we're gonna do the townhouse part R3, and then we're gonna do a separate zone for the single-family part R5, but none of it would have been R6.
Do you know how many lots is in there? That's right off of me, back in there, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know.
No, we haven't really looked into that one yet. No, I got several inquiries on that, but we haven't know, it's hard to comment on something if you haven't approved it, and, you know, I don't have any opinions of it either way at this point. You know, we're gonna completely vet that. Just because we done something yesterday doesn't mean we're gonna do that tomorrow. We look at everything individually and vet that and see if it fits and see if it fits in the area, and it goes through pretty vigorous stuff. If the planning board approves it, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to, and vice versa. And there may be a legality where we need to approve something that they disapprove. So it kind of goes back and forth, and we try to work with each other as much as possible, but we don't always agree. Yes, sir.
That's the subdivision in between Coventry and Paul West, right? I mean, that's the land behind, straight across from PTN.
Again, I'm not exactly sure. We haven't really gotten into that one yet.
Are you talking about the old, you talking about the old Helmy property?
No, that's a different property.
Are you talking about the property that John?
Yeah, this is a Midland Road property in 30, is from what I've heard.
We have been approved for the property behind the Helmy track in between Coventry and Paul West. Has that been approved to be built on?
The Helmy track has been approved. That was approved last year. Yes, sir. That was about a year ago.
I think that one's 300.
300.
It's a mix, that's a PD.
It's a mixture, it's a PD. One thing I like about the PD is that they have to work with our staff to go through the whole thing, and we get say in the whole thing, so it does give us some more tools. And they're actually gonna build the roundabout for us on that, so, yes, sir.
You say that track, the Helmy track is, ED?
It is yes, sir.
Mixed? Townhomes?
It does have some townhomes, I do remember that in homes. But they're required to build that, roundabout with that, so. They are stepping up where we need them to step up. Getting back on the questions, is there a reasonable opportunity for commercial development on the south end of the county? Yes, absolutely. We still have, on Hodgeville, there's a strip of land, if you're going out Hodgeville toward Blue Jay on the left-hand side, that's already zoned as a PD commercial. And I believe there's a PD commercial on the other side of the road as well. If it's not PD commercial, it's PD that they're looking at doing commercial. So I'd love to have us a place to go buy some groceries or something in the central area of District 2 instead of going either all the way to Lincoln or Pooler. In fact, I'd love to have us places to go sit down and eat something besides a hamburger. And that's gonna take rooftops, but and I know you feel that way too. It gets old traveling to Pooler every time we want to do something nice or go out and do something. So we're looking to get some commercial stuff on our side. Also talked with my representative on a couple of different occasions on the IDA board and see it. And one of my things, what I'd like to do is see us have a commercial arm of the IDA. So they're not all of industrial, but they also have a little bit of commercial involved with them too. So we're trying to attract commercial for constituents. We talked about ash roads. We know that's been a problem for years. I'm telling you, we thank God for T-Splost. We've been able to do so much more because we've got those funds, because it does come down to funding. We had very, very little of it before that. And we just had so many projects going on, especially in our district, because of the T-Splost. We're going to continue to do that. So if you guys see roads that need some attention, please shoot me an email, shoot me a text, call me, whatever. Because we're working on a list right now for the approval of the next T-Splost. We talked about roundabouts. We talked about a lot of stuff already. Somebody had a question about railroad crossings being paved repeatedly. We don't do that. That's the railroad people that do that. So they can do it as much as they want. I think it's a safety thing more than anything else. And somebody also made a suggestion. They said they were from up north originally. I don't want to look into it. It's called rubber mats in between the tracks and to smooth everything out. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Tim. Maybe something to look into if it's an easier ride. Yes, sir.
I sent that to you.
Yes, sir. I don't want to mention any names, so I took everybody's names off.
Rubber mats that they put down before the track.
Yes, sir.
And in the middle of the track and after the track. They're not repaving anything.
Really?
When you go across it, it's smooth.
That may be a railroad thing that they do up there too, so we have to be careful because we railroads control all that, and we have very little control on what they do. So when they shut us down and say we can't go through, we can't go through. We have to do what they say.
Roger.
Yes, sir.
Going down Goshen Road, I mean, you don't have to be a transportation engineer to see. If you're coming down Goshen Road, you going down a dip. Then you hit the railroad track, then you hit this other dip. That's why track is so awful.
Which one, this first one or the second one?
And then if the track goes, all it would take was to grade it and build it up before it comes to the track.
And when we repave, we're gonna repave and 3-lane Goshen, so when we do that, we're gonna straighten a lot of that out, and you'll see that all fixed. We're gonna do some nice things on Goshen Road. Short-term, long-term plans, we gave you guys that for traffic issues. We talked about so much already. Oh, what are you gonna do to keep your word to us that Hodgeville will not be allowed to be a truck route? I can tell you, I've already been working on that, and I'm taking it even a step further. Hodgeville will not be a truck route for sure. Will trucks be on it? Probably so. We've got a concrete plant that is on that road, and there's something else, a pipe plant as well. What we're trying to do is even get that traffic off the road. We're working on a plan now. Hopefully it works out in between one entity or the other. Tim and I have been discussing this, and we've already had some meetings to get a back access to Effingham Parkway. So no trucks are allowed at all on Hodgeville. Love to do that. If we can pull that off, we will. If it's not gazillions of dollars, some of the early estimates I've seen are a lot of money. But there's got to be a way to do that and get all the trucks off of Hodgeville, except for what's got to travel there and log trucks and things like that have business to do so. But every business that comes that's in that tract of land that's already zoned for industrial, they have to access Parkway. They cannot get on Hodgeville. That's part of the deal. So we're cutting that off right there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, as far as the parkway, that seems to be the end all of everything, all our problems. But it comes out of the S curve on Blue Jay, and it travels through to a roundabout on Highway 30, which is already overloaded. Okay? Those trucks, they can't go straight. Savannah said no trucks.
I know where you're going with this.
All right, so then they gotta take a left on 21.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 2 lanes, state road, yes, state road, state's problem, but it's our problem. They go that way, all that, that's everything from Highway 30 and everything from Effingham Parkway.
Yes, sir.
In a roundabout, and they gotta get on 2-lane road, go to 21.
We've been assured that we're gonna have access to Jimmy DeLoach from the Parkway without hitting 21. They're working on that. That's a state issue. That's all I can say about it right now, but we've been assured more than once, because it's been my concern for a long time, that we just not dump trucks out there and have to get right back on 21. It doesn't help us. We've been assured we'll be able to have truck traffic all the way to Jimmy DeLoach. So that's coming. Not sure when, but I know I've been assured by several different people, because it's been a big concern of mine for a long time. So we will have truck traffic depositing on something besides 21 and 30. Yes, sir.
In regards to the parkway, is it going to be completed in phases or all at once?
I believe all at once. It's on schedule. So
Is
it's
there been consideration made to maybe focusing on sections to help alleviate some of that traffic, like section 1 from 30 up to Goshen, section 2 to the next part?
It hasn't, because it is a collaboration with Chatham County as well, so they got to do their part. So even if we did our part, we might not go anywhere. So it's a full completion thing. But I will say that we've also been told by several sources that we're going to have another lane on 21. So you couple that with the Parkway, and that's some pretty substantial traffic we're able to move. And like I think Jamie or Tim said earlier, we have traffic 2 hours a day, in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. During the day, it's nothing. It's not. I mean, in comparison, there's been a million times I go to Highway 30 and there's no traffic there. Now, I'll be honest with you, if somebody wants to give me a doctor's appointment at 10 a.m., I tell them to forget it because I don't want to get in it. But during other times of the day, it flows pretty well. So I'm expecting once we do get these changes in place, it'll make a huge improvement.
My wife back here hollering, telling me to put my hand down, but I come in and dash away.
Why don't you let me get through these, and then, because I might answer some of that stuff that you guys have, if you don't mind. There's a lot of people everybody's kind enough to send, it's not a presentation, they're just kind enough to send in the questions, so I want to answer their questions, and I don't want to run out of time doing it. And some of the stuff I don't have answers for because they're not really related to what we do. Is there a plan to increase the fire and EMS support for this end of the county police deputy presence? I talked to Jimmy today, I wanted to get firsthand information. How they do things, they got 5 different zones. And in those 5 different zones, they assign so many policemen or policewomen. And within those zones, they've also got what they call a rover that goes from zone to zone. It doesn't go with density. It goes where the problem is. So if you make a 911 call and your cat's in a tree, and somebody else makes a 911 call and there's a wreck with a fatality, their people are gonna go to the fatality and the cat in the tree is gonna get put on the back burner. So it is a priority type of a thing that they do. And they're busy. They are so busy that they don't have a lot of patrolling because they're going from one thing to the other to the other. And it's not because of funding, and it's not because we don't want more deputies or we don't want to support them. We give them all the support they need. They can't find enough deputies. They cannot get people to do this job. It's become more and more of a thankless job in our nation for whatever reason, and you guys know a lot of those reasons. But they're having a hard time keeping people, and they're having a hard time getting new recruits to come on board to protect us. I don't have all the answers to that, but
Hodgeville, the open money in Fayetteville, Firesville Fire Department.
yeah, end of April. Yeah, that was another question. Hodgeville Fire Station, end of April. But yeah, that was one of my questions.
Well, it'll be complete, the building will be complete by the end of April. Right now, Rinkin covers the region for us. Their contract ends at the end of June. So we'll start staffing that, but it'll be fully operational as soon as we get the station, but it'll be fully operational July 1st. So if you don't see folks there end of April, understand that we're just waiting for the contract to expire.
That answers the next question. Can you work with the school district to add flashing school lights for South Effingham Elementary? Those will come as soon as we start working on the road. I think we got everything done. Very proud to say we did the extra lanes here that needed doing a long time ago for safety reasons and to get through. And my wife is going to kill me if I didn't do something about that commute back and forth to school. So we got that done, and the kids are safer because of it, and it's something we needed to do. Can signs be put in place stating the hours of operation? The school speed cameras, they flash when they're in operation. But school zones, I learned this today from Jimmy, they start an hour before school and an hour after school. That doesn't mean it's 25 or 35, but that means it is considered a school zone within that time. And if you should go 11 miles over the speed limit, it's a big fine, really big fine. Everybody loves these cameras, I know. Explain why there's so many traffic cameras, explain the results of the speed cameras. And this is excellent to me. The countywide average for speed reduction in our school zones has decreased overall by 94%. And that's everybody going 11 miles an hour or over in the school zones. And they're asking about accidents. I don't have that data. But reducing that by 94% in our county around our children, that's major. That's major. So yeah, they're doing, that's like a deputy standing there giving tickets. That's one deputy we don't have to have because we have those cameras. Impact for fire protection for houses 15 feet apart. I don't know if we have any of those, but when all that kind of stuff is state regulated and federally regulated, so that gets taken care of. We talked a lot about recreation, additional parks, which we're looking now. I'd love to have something else in our district.
I got a question on that recreation.
Yes, sir.
You know,
Can I get through this real quick? And then
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, I might answer your question. Sand Hill, we talked about. Somebody asked about schools to allow community access to the facilities. I think that's a security issue with that. Unless it's an outdoor. I know we used to do things. Yeah, and a lot of this is Board of Education. We don't have hardly anything to do with them other than we let them know what we're doing as far as what we have coming up. I've talked with Yancey personally on some of the stuff we had to approve or disapprove to make sure they can accommodate. Our job is to look at that kind of thing. His job is to accommodate the population. So if he says, hey, we can't take any more, that would be something we would listen to. But we have not heard that yet. And they work really hard. If you guys see the wings going up in the school, they know how much property they got, they know how many people are coming on board, they know how many things we have approved, they know how many things that can be built tomorrow and what's coming. So we do work with them in that manner. Get through recreation. Your recreation question, sir.
the recreation in this area, now, I know that property was offered to the county the amount of property taxes that I'm paying, and you say they're going down, every time I turn around since it crashed in, I don't know, 2009, my property taxes have gone up every year.
What's your question?
My question is, when we gonna get some recreation in this area?
Okay, we're working on that, but I can tell you about your taxes. Your taxes are a result of, it's not
You
a
don't even have
puzzle.
a plan.
Do you understand what a millage rate is?
Pardon?
Do you understand what a millage rate is?
Yeah, I know what it is, so you drop your millage rate and you raise the property value.
We don't raise the property value,
Okay.
your property value goes up.
Excuse me, you don't do it, somebody else does it.
Nobody
You know,
does it.
It's still the same thing, I end up paying more for my property taxes, so I mean.
Imagine if we would have rolled back the millage rate and your
Yeah,
property
but
would
roll
have
back the
increased.
property value too.
We can't roll back your property value, we don't
You know,
control the
or
market.
maybe, you know, a day bill like Chatham County has where the property taxes are froze at a certain value of the house until that person sells that house, and then.
I'm not aware of
at
that.
the new value rate.
Not aware of
There's
that
a
part.
day bill in Chatham County that does that, Susan Day bill. Stevens Day. Stevens Day.
Stevens, that's something different, that's not just because you wanna freeze it.
It's a homestead exemption.
Yeah, we have a homestead exemption here.
No, it's not the same thing.
Now, I know what you're talking about, but it limits the amount over so many years that you can raise taxes. That's a different animal than your value of your home.
Well, mine was raised by 20% 2 years ago.
I'm sorry your house got appraised more than what it was 2 years ago.
Don't even say it.
It can be appealed, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good
I
point.
did appeal.
Yes, sir, what happened?
Yeah, they threw it out,
I got a recreation.
flat out.
Yes, sir.
I know where there's a fine tract of 288 acres, we can make a heck of a park.
Do you own it?
No, but we never did.
Who owns it? I mean, we'll look at anything, I'm looking for,
Tommy Strickland.
Tommy Strickland?
He got a heck of a deal.
Make a great park.
oh, that one on Midland?
That makes an awesome park.
And that's the problem.
Wetlands in the middle of it.
You know, that's one of the problems. You know, we can't go pay $100,000 an acre for
Maybe
a
Mr.
rec
Tommy
park.
Strickland will donate it to the county.
Maybe you would. But who told us about the donation to the county? They tried to donate to the county. If they would still do that, I mean, I'd certainly take a look at it and get people with a rec board to take a look at it. I mean, we don't have all the answers, but we're willing to work on it. Utilities, sewage station on Hodgeville being repaired. Isn't that repaired?
Yeah, we awarded the contract for it. We're literally just waiting for the equipment to come in to replace the pump.
What's the
Timeline?
Hopefully by the end of the year. That's the timeline they gave us, on it. It's a
We do the
much
next
larger
meeting over there.
project. Yeah.
Can we do the next meeting over there? It smells like shit.
Oh, yeah, I know. We have a temporary pump there. We've had one there for years, but it's for a couple of years, but it's a much, we have to upgrade about 6 different pumps just to update one, so it's a complicated project, but, it's been awarded, it's under contract, the equipment has been ordered as soon as it comes in, and we're dealing with the same delays everybody else does.
That
It's
sounds
gonna
good.
go. What?
That sounds good.
Okay. Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and get into the Hodgeville thing, and then we'll wrap it up with some questions. Skip a couple other things. I'm sorry I didn't get to everything tonight. We're running out of time, and I want to be true to everybody's time here. Planning and zoning did not approve Hodgeville and Earl Lane. We did approve that. I was not in favor of that. I got voted out, but that's part of the reason was because we're spending so much money here. You know, our board saw fit to do that, and I can tell you this, even though I voted against it, if I had to put something here, that would be one that I would do it. So, 152 unit subdivision, and it's one of the nicer ones we're ever going to see around here. It'll be served by county water, sewer, and reuse. Staff provided input on requirements for open space, recreational amenities, resident parking, common element maintenance, and a traffic impact assessment to identify necessary improvements for Earl Lane and Hodgeville, which, by the way, the developer will have to pay for. That will not be county, not be on our dime. They're going to pave that road up to the development, so it will not be our responsibility.
Where's that at, Robert?
This is the one that got approved off of Hodgeville.
What's
Uh,
up with those lots?
From
I'm
Southern
not
Hills.
familiar with that. What's
It's
up?
across from Southern Hills, it's right, you know where Earl Lane runs into
I don't know
Hodgeville?
where that location's at, but what are the sizes of the lots? You said-
The dwellings per acre is 1.3. So the net density is 2.2 units per acre. Includes 5 acres of lakes, 19 acres of common open space. Amenities will include multi-purpose fields, a shade structure, open space with benches and parking throughout the development. There'll be a minimum of a 25-foot vegetative buffer, which is above the requirement, if I'm not mistaken, around the perimeter of the development. So that's the description of this thing. So it's not,
Half acre.
if I could do all those like that, that would be nice. I have no qualms with that. Yes, ma'am.
Our neighborhood is right next to that, and we are on a community well and drain fields. So how are they putting in sewer and water, and how is that gonna affect us, because it's real swampy?
Yeah, that was one of my questions,
Is that
actually.
gonna drain into our backyard?
No, ma'am, it won't. And this is a state requirement, it's not even a county thing. And their wetlands and everything comes under the state and the federal government. So when you develop a piece of property, and it sounds we're gonna develop your home lot, I am not allowed to put any more water off than I'm allowed to today. I can't put your house there. If I put your house there and I just disperse any more water, it has to be engineered ahead of time, I'm in trouble. So I have to keep all that water. I can put the same thing I usually do, but I cannot add 1 drop of water more than what I do today. So I can't impact you, I can't impact anything else. That's why we see ponds and everything now. Probably why we see 5 acres of lakes over there, because it is swampy and wet. But they've got a drain, they can't put stuff on other people's property.
Is it city sewer, I mean, how are they getting the sewer?
It's gonna be county water, county sewer, which I kinda wish we had where I'm at, over in Kensington Forest.
Which the developer pays for.
Yes, sir. He's paying for it, in fact, it's in here, in part of the description. Yep. County water, sewer, and reuse, which will be extended to the site by the developer. So that'll give us more availability in other areas that are paid for by the developer, which I'm all for. It's really, of course, the middle of the road development, that's gonna be, it won't be our next one. I've heard this is moved. We're trying to address some of the concerns of people that showed up there. So it'll probably be April or May before we hear that at all. Please show up if you have concerns about that. It matters when you show up. We've had people show up and then there's 3 people there.
Is it still on 7th?
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry, you said it's been moved?
It's been moved, but I'm not sure when.
They will put the sign back out there with the new date on it. It depends on when they get the application in, but it's probably going to be April. But as soon as they get the date, we're gonna put the sign out there so everybody knows.
We've been becoming a lot of support by him.
And if you guys are, and I don't, it may be better, they may lower the density, they may do some other things to make it more palatable for everybody. I don't know, like I said, I haven't looked into it, but we definitely will. All of us always look into these things, especially if they have a big impact.
The traffic circle in Midland is a big deal.
So, ma'am?
That's what I don't see. I don't see how they're trying to put 500 houses here and 300 houses here, and I live right here. I mean, that's 800 and something houses in just that little bit. I mean, it's into my house.
Yes,
And you
ma'am.
said,
Well, we haven't approved
there's
that.
no way you can develop in that, sir.
Yeah, I understand.
You got to help us. You got to help these people here, seriously.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'd like to see what they have first, and
Nancy is saying that we have the school for this amount of.
I have not talked to Yancy about this particular development. Like I say, before we really look into this, we're looking at planning and zoning to see what happens there. Then it goes in stages. I don't try to predetermine anything. I want to go to the board meeting with a fresh set of eyes and look at both sides, every time. So I try not to even talk to the developer or anything. I've had developers invite me to lunch. I don't do it. I'll say, send me a plan, I'll look at that. I just don't do those things.
I mean, just the stuff that's already been approved. I had a daughter in high school and she's gonna turn 16 in 3 weeks. She can't even park in the parking lot.
I understand. My son's in the same boat. He goes to ECECA and it took him 6 months to get a
But
permit.
this is stuff that's coming up and nothing to do with the school.
So I had one more question that was unrelated to District 2. If I hope I'm correct on this, but
We do not control.
No, but I mean, as far as, are we building, gonna be building
And by the way, when we do a development like this, and the one that just got approved for the Fetzer Lakes, it'll be 3 years before you see any substantial homes there. It takes a while. And that's one of the reasons why the board chose to go ahead and allow that one, because by the time we get it, we're gonna see some major changes in infrastructure.
The planning and zoning denied that one the other night. We
Yes, sir.
were all there. And the developer redesigned it. Does it have to go back to planning and zoning before it comes to all?
No, sir. The planning and zoning really helps us identify issues. When you guys show up and it gets shot down because of X and X and X and Y, they got a chance to go address X and X and X and Y before it goes to the board. That's their first round of things. If they brought something and it hadn't been changed and it might not be favorable to the board, or maybe. I can't speak for that. Like I said, I try not to, because I try to be fair and honest about it. Yes, ma'am.
Like you were saying, there was a ton of us at the zoning meeting the other night. And so that zone meeting, they denied the Midland and 30 subdivision zoning that they were asking for. Okay, so now, are you saying that they can go to a meeting now and come back with another thing, and we will not even know what the other thing is, it'll go straight to the commissioners to be voted on?
That's correct, but it's also a public hearing, just like planning and zoning is. So you have a chance to go do the same thing again to whatever new proposal they
So
have.
then what we were understanding the other night when we were at zoning was to come to you and make sure that you knew that the community around that 560-something homes does not want there.
Yes, ma'am. And I understand that, but please keep in mind,
My main reason for being here is to voice my opinion that I do not want it there, but that many more cars, that many more people in school, that many more people.
I understand.
Fire. We're already that's my main reason.
but that's why we need you at the board meeting, so you can say that, and instead of just saying that to 1 of 5, you're saying it to 5 of 5. I'm 1 vote of 5. Now you got 2.
Well, we were looking at 1,100 cars added to Midland Road in the morning, that's Highway 30.
And that may change, you may cut it in half. We've had another one that put in some things the other day and decided to pull it. You cut down it by 25% or 50% or something. So they're hearing, and they're working with us. 30%, I think it was.
Mr. Burnett, did I misunderstand you? You said, earlier you said this would not go back to the planning board.
Correct.
I think when you were discussing there, you may have misspoke and said it would go back to the planning.
No, sir, it will not go back to the planning board.
Okay.
It will go to the board.
That's what I understood.
Yes, sir.
Originally,
Yes, sir.
I thought it was a contract.
Yes, sir, like I said, that's the first vetting procedure, planning and zoning, next to go to the board. So they've said, no, let's wait, and I guess they're gonna address, I'm not sure what all the concerns were, could have been density, could have been, say, I didn't go to that meeting.
And all that's public records.
Absolutely.
You can call up there, you can get a copy of the plat.
Yes, sir.
Get their proposal.
When we get our agendas, and they're our public agendas, you'll see the plat, you'll see the proposal, you'll see the full description, just like I read that off an agenda from Fetzer Lakes. So that comes straight, everything is, maybe telling us to leave. Everything will be, laid out for you in text form. You can read it and look at the map, look at everything. Yes, ma'am.
How many days before the meeting are the agendas posted?
Yes.
We get
Thursday before.
Thursday before. That's when they're finalized.
Meeting's Tuesday.
For the next Tuesday.
You can apply, if you call the county, and have email to your email.
Good point, sir.
When
Yes,
the
sir.
meetings are coming up, you have an email to your.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If you have any suggestions, he said you can apply to have your email and get email updates on those types of things.
You call the county, tell them you want you give them your email address, and the agendas will be emailed to you. And there we have it.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So the changes that's gonna go to the board commissioners today, that was gonna be on the 7th. It's changed. When will that new information be available on the website so we can know?
That'll be available on that agenda the Thursday before, at a minimum.
And they're gonna repost the signs.
Yeah.
Correct.
You'll know first from the sign. The sign requires notification before the agenda.
We have to do sign and we have to do paper.
Yeah.
Each meeting, like they have to post the sign
A month
30 days.
ahead.
I'm there is.
It's not
I just,
3 days.
Yeah, it's not 3
No,
days.
it's not.
It's longer than, it's before that Thursday, and I just don't remember the.
It has to be
the time.
posted and it has to be posted, put it into like a legal organ, like the local newspaper a certain period of time before.
Will the county mail out notifications to the
No, sir.
homeowners
Yep.
like they did this
We
time?
do? Oh, the adjacent ones, yes,
Yeah.
but not the whole district. I thought you meant like the whole district. But any adjacent homeowners, they do get notification that it's happening. Yes, sir.
I know, Rob, you can't force them to do anything, but I know you could recommend or suggest to them, maybe offer some type of meeting ahead of the county commission meeting.
We did.
So they don't get blindsided at the commission meeting week before, week and a half before.
That would be
So
great.
they get educated.
That would be great. That's a great idea.
We did request that that developer, reach out to, the residents, don't just, at least try and make an effort, to communicate,
And
so
he
they're
told me
not.
afterwards that he felt that's what they should have done before the planning and zoning.
Is that something we can help coordinate?
We told them that they need, and if they need us to help coordinate it, we will. But, with some of the emails and responses we've got, we can reach out, but we leave that up to them.
It's always good to let your neighbor know what's going on.
Yeah, I got one of their cards, but the other two guys didn't have a card on.
I did get a question on 21 in McCall. Somebody was asking about all the clearing there, all the trees. Used to be kind of a swamp. It's got turned over. I don't think there's any plans for that. They're just clearing it for sale, from what I understand.
They're just preparing it for sale, for development, for commercial. It was rezoned years and years and years ago, and now they're just starting it.
Commercial, not industrial.
Yeah.
Which I like. Yes, sir.
I got one quick question. New development on Blue Jay across from the Hamilton station there?
Yes, sir.
What are those little cracker boxes, on that? Do you like it?
We know that's an R6.
Well, that is R6, you're right. And we don't know, but we're making a projection based on how many permits they're asking for simultaneously. We feel that will probably be one of those build to rent communities.
Must be two-story.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that, now that I remember, that the R5 address, was the build to rent, because.
Yes, we saw that one coming, and we've been on that since we heard about it.
So how do they pick? Like, oh, I only one of the houses, I want to rent this one. No, I can't because too many people have already.
No, they buy out the whole subdivision.
Yeah, but this like one giant rural community.
Yeah, it gets approved for, R6, and then after the fact, the hedge fund from New York comes in and buys the whole thing.
Well, I'm saying even like if I'm a homeowner and I move out of state, but I want to rent my house. Okay, do they then just?
Oh, no, you'd still be able to do that.
Oh, yeah, so the
It's
way
not
we did, I get what you're saying, so
individual.
we don't restrict, homeowners, the way we do it is we say, that only certain amount of homes can be rented after the first year of getting the CO, right? And so, obviously that prevents this from happening because they're gonna wanna rent immediately after it's built. We say no more than 20% can be rented, within a year after construction is complete of the house, so.
After a year, it's free rent.
What?
After a year, it's basically.
Yeah, and so this way, if someone buys it and they wanna rent it out, or, they're deployed or something like that, they'll be able to do it, it's just got that 1 year limitation.
It limits the big guys from coming in and starting a rental community off the bat. They'd have to hold it for a year. Permitting.
Now we got the same problem right now, I think they go into Dobby and downtown about Green Tower.
I think they're changing their VRBOs.
Yeah, so and that's one of the reasons why we didn't make the limitation permanent, was because we didn't want to manage it. And so, we have them do it as part of the, because there's we will now require amenities in all these neighborhoods and open space, there's a homeowners association. And if there's a homeowner association, they're responsible legally to enforce that. And so we have an entity that we can then go after to make sure that it's enforced.
Can they dissolve the homeowners association?
Yeah, but not after the first year. And so that's our whole thing. We're trying to stop those rents just for that first year to prevent the hedge funds, so.
Ms. Jen?
So the houses that we know of, that we're hearing of now being approved, we all know about them. But I've been told that once you get approved, it does not expire. So there could be some on the books from 5 years ago that still have to be built. Do you know a number for those?
Yes.
Like total?
Keep in mind, some of these homes will never get developed. But if you put together all of the homes that have been approved, let's say R3 or R6, I think the total was about 2,200, somewhere around there. That's countywide. And so it was actually much larger, but we had a very large apartment complex that looks like it's going to cancel itself out. But it's somewhere around those that are kind of grandfathered into the old rules. To prevent lawsuits, that's why we said no more R6, but from this point forward, it's R5 and here are the rules. So, but you still have those backlog that are about 2,200 homes, I think, that are within there.
So the new rules, there is an expiration date if they don't build within a certain date?
As far as rezoning, she's saying like the rezoning.
Oh, no, the zoning never expires. Once you're zoned under state law. And so the zoning does not revert back to original zoning if they don't do anything with it.
I'll take one more question, we'll wind it
Can
up.
you just speak to the timeline of Erlang Road development with that housing? Like what, I know that Erlang Road where the 250 houses are going in, like what is the timeline as to when they start that?
That should be started, you probably see a rooftop in 2.5 years, what we're being told.
Okay, are they gonna, build the neighborhood and then the road, or are they gonna?
I would feel sure they'll build a road first.
Yeah, they have to.
They have, plus you've gotta get trucks in there and everything else, they're not gonna use a dirt road.
Yeah, they're gonna have to build the roads first and the infrastructure first.
But all that's still pending for engineer's assessment, correct?
I think it's been delineated.
What?
Hasn't that one been delineated already?
Yeah, I think
Pretty sure
he's
that
right. I
one's been
think they
delineated
delineated the
already.
wetlands on that. Yeah.
One more question, we'll go. Everybody's hungry, I'm sure. Maybe two, yes ma'am.
Where's the gateway connector to Effingham Parkway? We're talking about the roundabout, not the way the gateway connector.
Okay, so,
There's a road in between Hodgeville and McCall. It runs right in the middle of things, and that connector's right in the center of that. It's a new road. If you ever drive McCall, you look to your left and right, there'll be a warehouse on the right. The gateway connector's going straight through there. And we're not paying for that one either. I think that's all
yeah,
on
and
the
that'll
tracks.
connect to Hodgeville, just north of the fire station.
But just for cars. Yes, sir.
Actually, a comment on the water outage about 2 weeks ago where all the South Effingham was out of water.
Yeah, I guess everybody kind of knows about that already. That was straight from Chatham. They had a water line bust, as I understand it. Happened early evening, and they got it fixed by 4 o'clock the next morning. We're looking at some alternative sources and some backup plans for that right now. But as far as I know, living 20 years here, we've never had that happen that I'm aware of. But they got it running pretty quick. Kudos to them. We had it by the next morning. Upset a lot of people. And if you're on community water, you didn't even know it.
Yeah, the boiler advisory just seemed a little vague, they just go with that.
It was a
Right.
And some people are like, what outage? You know, you got wells or community wells and all that stuff. So.
They said, if you notice a pressure drop, what if I wasn't using water? I don't know about
Right.
that.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't lose water or lose water pressure, you don't have to boil. You got something different. Yes, sir.
What do you do for that?
I own a trucking and logistics company.
Did you own Carlisle Village for that?
I did for a little while, yes, sir.
No, what? No, 11 years is a long time.
Yes, sir.
What is Carlisle?
Carlisle Village is a townhome development in Rincon.
Actually, it's duplexes.
Yeah. Well, it's not duplexes, I guess duplexes are two. It was a single level townhome development that we just tried to get going.
Townhomes are two-story, but I just want to make sure everybody knew that you were involved in logistics, and then you own townhomes.
Well, I don't want them anymore.
Not right now.
Yeah. And what's your point, sir?
I just thought they might need to know.
I just told him earlier, I'm in trucking, so.
And you own townhomes, so.
Well, I used to own townhomes, yes, sir. Okay, in Rincon, which I'm not part of or in my district, so. You have a point? I didn't think so. Have a nice day. Thank y'all. I really appreciate y'all coming out. It's been great. Let's do this again soon. If you got any questions for me, please email me. I'll do my best to answer as quick as I can.